Von Ryan's Express was not just a classic World War II escape movie, it was a runaway train production fueled by Frank Sinatra's volcanic ego, a real life train crash that nearly killed the crew, and an ending so shocking and bleak the studio fought to bury it. What audiences saw was a thrilling adventure about Allied prisoners of war hijacking a train. What they did not see was the behind the scenes war being fought between Sinatra and his co star, a director pushed to the brink, and the physical toll of filming one of the most dangerous action movies of its era. Today, we are pulling the emergency brake on 20 wild facts about Von Ryan's Express that will make you question everything you thought you knew about this beloved classic. And stick around for a bonus fact about the film's secret connection to a real-life historical event that was even more chaotic than the movie. Number 20. Sinatra and Trevor Howard's feud was a legendary on-set Cold War. The tension between Colonel Ryan and Major Fincham was not just great acting, it was a real-life war of attrition between Frank Sinatra and Trevor Howard. The clash was not just professional, it was a deep-seated ideological battle between two opposing forces of acting. What audiences did not know was that Howard, a classically trained Shakespearean actor, held Sinatra's casual, ring-a-ding-ding style in utter contempt. He saw Sinatra not as a fellow actor, but as a pop star who was faking his way through a dramatic role. This mutual disrespect manifested in a silent, brutal Cold War on set. They barely spoke to each other between takes, communicating only through the director. Sinatra would deliberately flub lines just to annoy Howard, who would respond with withering theatrical sighs. This off-screen hostility is what makes their on-screen dynamic so electric. The audience is watching two men who genuinely cannot stand each other, forced to rely on one another to survive. Number 19. Sinatra's diva behavior paralyzed the production. Frank Sinatra was not just a star, he was the entire production's biggest obstacle. His behavior on the Italian set was not just demanding, it was dictatorial. What audiences did not know was that Sinatra refused to work more than a few hours a day, often not showing up until the afternoon. This threw the entire shooting schedule into chaos as the crew had to wait for their star to grace them with his presence. His infamous entourage, nicknamed the Rat Pack on location, would take over entire sections of the set, creating a party atmosphere that clashed with the serious tone of the film. Director Mark Robson was reportedly beside himself, but powerless to act against the industry's most powerful star. The production hemorrhaged money due to these delays, and the constant waiting created immense frustration for the rest of the cast, especially the professional actors like Trevor Howard, who had to endure Sinatra's prima donna antics. Number 18. The famous train top stunt was incredibly dangerous and almost ended in tragedy. The film's most iconic action sequence, prisoners of war scrambling across the roofs of moving train cars into a tunnel, was not just a movie stunt. It was a life-threatening gamble with human lives. In an era before computer-generated imagery, this was all done for real. What audiences did not know was that the stuntmen and actors, including a young Edward Fox, were actually on top of a train moving at 30 miles per hour. The biggest danger was the tunnel. The timing had to be absolutely perfect. A mistimed jump or a slip meant being swept off the train or, worse, smashed against the tunnel entrance. On one take, a stuntman miscalculated his jump and was clipped by the tunnel's entrance, falling between the cars. He was incredibly lucky to escape with only a broken leg and severe bruising. The scene you see in the final film is a composite of multiple terrifying takes, each one a roll of the dice with the cast's lives. It is a testament to that they do not make them like they used to era of filmmaking, where danger was real and not simulated. Number 17. The film's ending was so bleak, the studio demanded it be changed. The film's shocking, unforgettable ending was not the original plan. It was a brutal, defiant choice by the director that sparked a major battle with the studio. In the final scene, Colonel Ryan is gunned down by a German plane just as freedom is in sight. What audiences did not know was that 20th Century Fox executives were horrified when they saw the first cut. They demanded director Mark Robson shoot a new, happier ending where Sinatra's character survives and is reunited with the escaped prisoners of war. They argued that killing off the biggest movie star in the world was commercial suicide. Robson, backed by Sinatra, who loved the cynical ending, refused. He argued that the film's power came from its realism and the tragic, random nature of war. In a rare victory for artistic integrity over studio interference, Robson won the fight. The bleak ending remained, cementing the film's status as a tough, unsentimental classic. Number 16, a real train crash during filming. The production did not just simulate a train wreck, it experienced a real one. The centerpiece of the film was the captured Italian train, which the production had painstakingly acquired and modified. What audiences did not know was that during filming of the sequence where the train switches tracks to avoid a collision, a mechanical failure occurred. The points on the railway line did not switch correctly, and the film's train, with its valuable camera equipment mounted on the front, was sent hurtling down the wrong line toward a siding. It crashed into a line of empty freight cars at a low speed. The impact was jarring but not catastrophic, and no one was seriously injured. However, the train was badly damaged, and filming was halted for several days while repairs were made. The incident created a sense of genuine dread on set. A stark reminder that they were working with tons of moving steel that was inherently unpredictable and dangerous. Number 15, Sinatra hated the filming conditions and refused to do his own stunts. Frank Sinatra may have played a war hero, but he was no hero when it came to the grueling filming conditions in Italy. While he was a demanding diva in the best of times, the location shoot pushed him to his limit. What audiences did not know was that Sinatra hated the heat, the dust, and the physical discomfort of shooting on location. He complained constantly about the primitive conditions and refused to participate in any scene that involved even the slightest bit of physical risk. Every time his character was supposed to run, jump, or engage in any form of exertion, a stunt double was used. This is most noticeable in the action sequences, where you rarely see a clear shot of Sinatra's face during a stunt. This refusal to perform his own stunts created even more friction with his co-stars, particularly Trevor Howard, who was doing his own stunts and saw Sinatra's behavior as the epitome of unprofessionalism. Number 14, the film's title was a last-minute change. The film's iconic title was not the one it was born with. The movie was shot under the title of the source novel, The Train. What audiences did not know was that just before release, the studio discovered that another film, a French production by John Frankenheimer, was also set to be released in the United States under the title The Train. Fearing a catastrophic box office collision, 20th Century Fox went into a panic. A new title was needed, Fast. The marketing department brainstormed furiously, and someone came up with Von Ryan's Express. The name was brilliant. It was catchy, it hinted at the plot, and it centered the story squarely on its megastar. It was a last-minute change born of corporate panic, but it turned out to be one of the most memorable and marketable titles in Hollywood history, perfectly capturing the film's blend of escape, irony, and star power. Number 13, the Nazi major's car was a historical anachronism. The film is renowned for its attention to detail, but it contains one glaring historical error that drives military history buffs crazy. In the sequence where the German major, played by Wolfgang Priest, pursues the prisoners of war in a staff car, the vehicle he drives is a Mercedes-Benz 600. What audiences did not know was that this luxury car, famous for ferrying dictators and celebrities in the 1960s, was not even designed until a decade after World War II had ended. It was a product of the 1960s, not the 1940s. The production likely used the car because it was available, looked suitably imposing, and was provided by a local sponsor. It is a classic example of Hollywood prioritizing visual impact over historical accuracy. While most viewers would not notice, the anachronistic presence of a 1960s limousine in a World War II film is a glaring oops moment for those in the know. Number 12. The source novel's author hated what they did to his story. The film was based on a best-selling novel by David Westheimer, but the author was not a fan of the adaptation. Westheimer's book was a more nuanced, character-driven story that focused heavily on the psychological conflict between Ryan and Fincham. What audiences did not know was that Westheimer felt the movie had stripped his story of its depth, turning it into a simple, action-packed adventure. He was particularly critical of the changes made to his ending. In his novel, Ryan Survives. The film's decision to kill him off was a deviation that Westheimer publicly criticized, arguing that it betrayed the character's journey and the novel's thematic message. He felt Hollywood had taken his intelligent story and dumbed it down for the masses, a common complaint from authors who see their work adapted for the big screen. Number 11. The film's score was a rush job that became a classic. Jerry Goldsmith's rousing, iconic score was not the product of leisurely composition. It was a high-pressure masterpiece created in a matter of weeks. The film's original composer, an industry veteran, was fired after delivering a score that the studio deemed too old-fashioned and uninspired. What audiences did not know was that with the premiere date looming, Jerry Goldsmith, then a rising star in the music department, was brought in to save the day. He was given the near impossible task of writing and recording a full score for a 2.5-hour action epic in less than a month. Goldsmith worked around the clock, creating the famous Von Ryan's Express March and the tense rhythmic action cues that drive the film. The result is one of the greatest film scores of the 1960s, a testament to Goldsmith's extraordinary talent and ability to perform under extreme pressure. He turned a crisis into a triumph. Number 10, Sinatra used his Mafia connections to solve a location problem. Frank Sinatra's rumored ties to the Mafia were not just tabloid gossip. They allegedly came in handy during a difficult location shoot. The production needed to film in a small, historic Italian town, but the local communist mayor, who was anti-American, refused to grant them a permit. What audiences did not know was that after days of fruitless negotiations, Sinatra made a phone call. According to legend, he called a friend in Chicago who made another call to a friend in Sicily. The next morning, the mayor mysteriously had a change of heart and not only granted the permit, but offered the crew the town's full cooperation. While this story has never been officially confirmed, it was widely whispered on set and became part of the film's folklore. It is a perfect example of the Sinatra mystique, where the lines between the man, the myth, and the movie star blurred into a single, untouchable force. Number 9. The film was a massive box office hit, but critics were mixed. Von Ryan's Express was not just a beloved classic. It was a commercial juggernaut that was one of the highest grossing films of 1965. Audiences flocked to see Sinatra in a tough, action-packed role, and the film's thrilling pace and spectacular stunts were a huge draw. What audiences did not know was that, despite its popular success, the film received a mixed reception from critics. Many praised it as a top-tier adventure film, hailing its suspense and action sequences. However, a significant contingent of highbrow critics dismissed it as a shallow, jingoistic piece of entertainment. They criticized its lack of deep character development and saw it as a simple, albeit well-made, men-on-a-mission movie. This division between popular appeal and critical respect has followed the film for decades, ensuring its status as a classic that audiences adore but some critics still undervalue. Number 8. The Italian partisans were played by real Italian actors with real resentments. The film's portrayal of Italian partisans was not just acting. It was infused with the real-life memories and emotions of the Italian actors playing them. The production hired local Italian actors and extras to play the resistance fighters who aid the prisoners of war. What audiences did not know was that many of these men were children or teenagers during the actual German occupation of Italy. They had lived through the war, and some had family members who were partisans. They brought a raw, authentic anger and pride to their roles that could not be faked. Their scenes were not just performance, they were a reenactment of a struggle they understood intimately. This gave the film a layer of authenticity in its Italian sequences that is palpable, a quiet tribute to the real men and women who fought to liberate their country from the grip of fascism. Number 7. The plane strafing sequence was a mini-movie in itself. The thrilling final attack by a German fighter plane was not just a simple special effects shot, it was a complex logistical nightmare that was almost a film within a film. To get the dynamic shots of the plane strafing the train, the production had to mount a camera on another plane and fly it in tight formation with the attacker. What audiences did not know was that this aerial stunt work was incredibly dangerous. The pilots had to fly perilously close to the ground, and the train to get the dramatic angles the director wanted. The explosions on the ground were timed to go off just as the plane passed overhead, requiring split-second coordination between the pilot, the camera operator, and the pyrotechnics team on the ground. The resulting sequence is a masterpiece of action filmmaking, a white-knuckle ride that feels terrifyingly real because it was created with real planes, real pilots, and real carefully calculated risks. Number 6, the film's uniforms and equipment were surprisingly authentic. For all its Hollywood gloss, the film was remarkably accurate in its depiction of military hardware and uniforms. The costume and props departments went to great lengths to ensure authenticity. What audiences did not know was that they sourced hundreds of original World War II era American and German uniforms, helmets, webbing, and weapons from European military surplus dealers. Frank Sinatra's A2 leather flight jacket and the character's service uniforms were period perfect. The The German soldiers' uniforms and equipment were also highly accurate, right down to the correct insignia and models of rifles. This commitment to detail grounded the film in a tangible reality, making the fantastic story of a train hijacking feel more plausible. It was a subtle but crucial element that elevated the film above a simple B movie plot, giving it the look and feel of a serious war epic. Number 5. The film's success revitalized Sinatra's acting career. While Frank Sinatra was a music icon and a previous Oscar winner, his film career in the early 1960s had hit a rough patch. He had starred in a series of forgettable films that failed to connect with audiences. What audiences did not know was that Von Ryan's Express was a make or break project for him as a movie star. Its massive success was a shot in the arm, completely revitalizing his Hollywood standing. It reestablished him as a viable and powerful box office draw in dramatic roles. The film's triumph proved that he could still carry a major action film on his shoulders, leading to more significant roles in the late 1960s and 1970s. Without the success of Von Ryan's Express, his later acclaimed performances in films like The Detective and The Godfather Part 3 might never have happened. Number 4, the train itself became a minor tourist attraction after filming. The film's true star, the train, did not just disappear after the cameras stopped rolling. The locomotive and the train cars, which had been so meticulously modified for the film, were left in Italy. What audiences did not know was that for several years after the film's release, the Von Ryan's Express train was parked on a siding near the filming location. It became a minor tourist attraction for film buffs and travelers who would seek it out to see the real train from the movie. Eventually, as with many film props, it was likely sold for scrap or its parts were cannibalized for other uses. But for a time, this piece of Hollywood history sat rusting in the Italian sun, a silent monument to one of the greatest adventure films ever made. Number 3, director Mark Robson was not the studio's first choice. The film's taut, expert direction was not the studio's initial plan. The producers first approached a director who was a much bigger name at the time, John Sturges, the master of the ensemble adventure film who had just directed The Great Escape. What audiences did not know was that Sturges turned the project down. He felt that the story was too similar to The Great Escape and he did not want to be typecast as a World War II escape movie director. This opened the door for Mark Robson, a highly capable but less flamboyant director known for his versatility. Robson took the job and ran with it, creating a film that, while sharing a genre with The Great Escape, has its own distinct, grittier, and more cynical tone. It is a fascinating what if to imagine what a Sturges-directed version would have looked like, but Robson's work stands as a masterpiece in its own right. Number 2, the film's final shot is an ironic nod to Sinatra's career. The film's final, haunting image of the dead train slowly rolling to a stop is more than just a tragic ending. It is a clever, ironic piece of symbolism. What audiences did not know was that the image of the train, its momentum gone, slowly grinding to a halt, was seen by many as a subtle metaphor for the state of Sinatra's own career at the time. He was an older star in a changing Hollywood, and his box office power was beginning to wane. The train, once a symbol of unstoppable energy and hope, is now just a piece of dead metal, its journey over. This reading adds a layer of poignant, self-reflexive sadness to the ending, making Sinatra's character's tragic fate a mirror for the actor's own anxieties about his place in the world. It is a final, melancholic punchline that only deepens on reflection. Number 1, the real-life escape that inspired the novel was even more audacious. The film's story, based on a novel, feels like a classic World War II adventure, but it was inspired by a real event that was even more unbelievable. In 1943, after the Italian surrender, a group of British prisoners of war in northern Italy did indeed escape. What audiences did not know was that their real escape was not on a train, it was on foot. They walked over 400 miles through German-occupied Italy, trying to reach the Allied lines. Along the way, they were aided by Italian partisans, just like in the film. The sheer scale of their journey, a trek of hundreds of miles through enemy territory, is arguably even more daring and incredible than hijacking a train. The novel and the film took this true story of endurance and bravery and adapted it into the more cinematic and action-packed train heist we know today. But the real-life feat of human endurance that inspired it remains one of the most amazing escape stories of the entire war. Bonus fact, the film's plot was almost a reality for the actor who played the German major. The most shocking secret is not in the script. It is in the real-life past of the actor who played the chief antagonist. Wolfgang Price, the brilliant German actor who played the dogged German major, had his own real-life von Ryan's Express story during World War II. While absolutely no one on set knew was that Price had served in the German Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front. After being wounded, he was captured by Soviet forces and became a prisoner of war. He spent years in a brutal Soviet gulag. He eventually managed to escape the camp and began an incredible on-foot journey, just like the real prisoners of war who inspired the film. He walked hundreds of miles, dodging patrols and living off the land, before eventually making it to safety. So when Wolfgang Price was chasing Frank Sinatra's train across Italy, he was not just acting. He was a man who had lived through a real-life, desperate escape, bringing an unparalleled layer of authenticity and understanding to his role as a determined hunter. Von Ryan's Express was not just a movie. It was a high-stakes production that became as thrilling and unpredictable as the story it was telling. It was a film where the star's ego was as powerful as the locomotive, where the stunts were as dangerous as the war they depicted, and where the final, shocking moment of silence was a defiant statement in an era of happy endings. The film's legacy is that it proved an adventure movie could also be tough, cynical, and heartbreaking. It is a film that honors the grit and sacrifice of the greatest generation without sugarcoating the brutal, random nature of their struggle. It is an express ride to a destination you do not expect, and that is what makes it a timeless classic. If this wild ride through a film's history shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies you only think you know. And remember, in the journey of life, not everyone gets to reach the final station.